don't like people anyway.
Well, thank you all for turning up this morning for the Integrated Catchment Committee meeting. Sort of at me or not? Of Thursday, the 11th of April. So you want to start with a kitty care? Thanks, Greg. Sorry.
Seems to be faulty. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Morena Tato Committee, and just acknowledge we have some of my team in the room, and we'll also have some of my team who've joined online. Some will be here for the whole meeting, some will join throughout. Karakia Timatanga. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kinakina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, e hio, e hoka, e hauhu, tihei, Māori ora.
If you read the health and safety policy, we'll just move ahead with that. Apologies from Clyde, Pamela, Stu. I should say their full names: Clyde Graff, Pamela Story, and Stu Kneebone. Seconder. All in favour? Carried. Against? Sorry. Carried. I'd like to confirm the agenda. The agenda of the meeting is circulated. So can I have a mover for that, please? Yep. A seconder. All in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, yeah, okay. So, and minutes from the subcommittees. A mover for that, please. Oh, Benjamin? Ben? Yep, yep. Thank you. Yep.
One of the issues that previous councils have been, well, there's been criticism, excuse me, from members of subcommittees and the subordinate committees, catchment committees and the like that we had in previous councils. And I know Councillor Stu Kneebone has been absolutely in my ear about these issues, is that when the subcommittees met, it took so long to get matters before ICM. And here again, we've fallen into that trap. We've got a meeting in November, December, that's only been reported to this committee in April, 5 months. I'm looking at the program throughout the year. You've got this meeting, you've got one in June, one in September, one in October for the distribution of funds in the biosecurity, biodiversity area. And I'm not sure, I was just trying to look at see if there was one in December, but essentially 3 ICM meetings for a year that I can find, and one to disperse funds. I really am concerned, and it's timely that these minutes show up on the agenda, because are we doing justice to the work? It's 30–40% of council's activities, and I don't want to see meetings for meeting's sake, but are we meeting in a timely fashion? So I just want to table that, but I would certainly like to know from other members, and Stu's not here today and he's put his apology, but he is challenging me and therefore the committee as to whether we are having meetings. I know at times he's challenged me as whether Robbie and I are doing things without the knowledge of the rest of the committee or council. We are certainly not. But I accept that it may be having given that appearance because we just had to get on, because we can't bring things to a meeting. So I am concerned about whether we are meeting regularly enough and in a timely fashion. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just so had a comment. So if I could just, I guess, clarify the situation just to help the committee. We did have a meeting scheduled for December. The decision at the time was taken to not have that meeting and focus on the subcommittee meetings that were at the same time for one reason, but the other primary reason was there was quite a heavy workload across staff and councillors around the long-term plan at that time. And a lot of, I guess, ICM related discussions already happening within various workshops and meetings to do with the long-term plan. So look, I guess that was the basis for that decision, but take your point, absolutely. Councillor, ICM is a important and large part of council business, and it's important that council and this committee are discharging their governance functions as needed, including connection to our subcommittees.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Noel's saying, but also say that there have been other examples where I've attended, for example, the Raupatu Trust meeting last week and found out about stuff relating to biodiversity that had not come through ICM, you know, progress reporting and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm pretty concerned about the way some of that's been happening.
I was just going to say that at the Karakia meetings, there are actually action items that come out of the result of the meeting. And I wonder whether these should be reported into full council so that we know actually what, because at the moment we're talking about development of long-term plan, but there are questions arising and actions resulting that were minuted that don't necessarily get seen by the full committee.
So so you're the questions that the committees are asking and the action that's going to be taken isn't reported back to this committee.
Well, I'm not sure if it is or not. I mean, because here you've got to go and look at the recording to see what was actually there, but it should be a brief summary of the things we decided and the actions that were going to be taking place as a result.
I'm sitting a bit where Noel and Bruce are as well. Not that I'm trying to foreshadow anything, but I believe that maybe a more regular meeting and not as longer meetings are better. That we have that more of what is happening in that time is being reported at that time, instead of, as Noel said, some going on for 4 months, which isn't anyone's fault at the moment, but things have gone on for 4 months at the moment, and things, what's on people's mind at the time is then forgotten, and then it's what we're dealing with, and that's a bit of the firefighting stuff we had to deal with last year with all the floods and everything anyway. So it's still that sort of, now that's my phone, sorry. So yeah, we seem to be still sitting in that box that we were sitting in last year and not actually dealing with work that's actually going on now. We're still dealing with previous stuff. And it would be nice to actually have our committee that it's dealing with stuff in real time now, not asked in 4 months behind. So I totally, it's something you most probably going to talk later about, Greg, is how do, in that area, then we can give more time to biodiversity if we have meetings that are a bit smaller and we get more targeted on what we want to look at. I suppose that's a better way of looking at it. Their meetings are targeted, and we're going to look at one perspective, and we can have the time and deal with it there and then. So I take your point, Noel. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, thanks. Just from what Bruce just said, reporting, what kind of overlaps do we have with EPC and ICM? Is stuff getting reported to them and not to us, or vice versa? Because even Councillor Ben mentioned that this morning. So obviously there's overlaps in all the committees on stuff we do, but especially in that biodiversity and biosecurity, is that possible to answer, or is there always going to be an overlap that some stuff might not be reported to one to the other?
Look, I can give a general comment. EPC is generally limited I can't recall too much. Patrick may have some other insights into that. Certainly of late, I mean, we have had ICM matters before risk and assurance. We have had ICM matters before Stratton Poll as well, including last week, which we'll cover off around the Natural Heritage Policy Partnership Program. So there will always be overlaps depending on the, I guess, the function of the committee. And I guess the challenge for us is providing that holistic view to this committee as well, to enable this committee to do what's expected of it. Patrick, you had some observations?
The intent is to not have overlaps, to be honest. It's trying to have the operational components in here. Where there's big risks, they go to risk and assurance. For any policy strategic stuff, it goes to Stratton Poll, and nothing really should go to EPC. So the intent is to not have overlaps and to be complementary rather than or any gaps. There may be some gaps.
Well, I mean, through you, Mr. Chair, more than happy to take an action out of today to sit down with members to talk through these things and see how we can make adjustments to, I guess, meet the needs of the committee.
Sorry, Ben, just if it helps, so the subcommittees can make recommendations to ICM. ICM can then make recommendations to council. And with regards to the actions, they are requests, they are not must be done actions.
It's like, does this committee need to know not just that we spoke to them about the long-term plan, but they asked a specific question on these things, or how does that get managed? I know. Yeah. Yeah.
It depends on the nature of the inquiry.
If I can just jump in there, Greg, as well, we've also got an actions register going that we've just started as a result of the subcommittees, just so that ICM can capture all the committees. So Steph, Greg's EA, and I are just working on that document now, just so that those actions are captured and can be seen. And it is something that we could potentially bring to this committee if you'd like in the future, so you can see all the actions that were requested in both those subcommittees.
With the outcomes often, because you'll have the answer or whatever, and just so that we can see it's been completed and signed off and reported back, or about to be reported back to that committee, subcommittee.
Yeah, Greg, if you think that's, yeah, absolutely.
Good discussion. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? Anything changed? No.
All right, so I'll pass over to Patrick Whaley, our Manager of Biosecurity and Biodiversity, to cover off a general update on our biosecurity and biodiversity operations before we launch into a couple of papers focused on biocontrol and the Natural Heritage Fund for the year ahead.
Cool.
Thanks, Patrick.
Cool, thanks, Greg. Yeah, so if it's okay through the chair, I'd just like to pull a few key parts out of this report and take the rest of it as read. So just highlight some, I guess, some issues and some successes as well. So the first point I'd like to raise.
Sorry, Patrick, if you just bring your mic a bit closer. They're quite sensitive. Yeah,
cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the first point I'd like to raise is the I guess the impacts of some of Department of Conservation budget cuts or budget constraints for two of our pest control areas. So that's the Karioi and Hauturu Awaroa PPCAs. They're long-standing. Both of them have been going for over 20 years, but DOC has signalled that there is no longer budget for the public conservation land component of those areas. In Karioi, the community has really responded to that challenge, and so they are trying to pick up the work that the department was doing over the maunga. It's not going to be the same down in Hauturu Awaroa, so it really does put those whole areas at risk if Department of Conservation cannot manage the pests on their land. So just flagging that. We're still working through exactly what that means. I guess we'll bring it back to this committee once we have a bit more clarity. But it's it's really disappointing.
So thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Patrick, I suppose, there's a whole lot of moving parts in that area, especially with DOC and MPI. If you could just keep us really up to date, because that's going to have a huge, with those two being, two major partners for WRC, I think it's going to have a huge impact on where we're going to be in the next 3 years. So yeah, just a real update live, even if it's an email from Greg, just to say, this is the space and what's been dropped through those job losses in central government agencies.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for that. And this just to note that this was pre those cuts, so we've known they've signalled this a little while ago, but I think the impacts of these latest cuts will be a little while off, but we'll certainly keep you up to date. So that's the first point. Second point is...
Yeah, I've just wanted to make a comment in support of what Mikhail just said, and it would be really good for us to, at some point in the committee, to receive a sort of a summary of the implications of some of this. I'm just listening to what Patrick just said and thinking about the Hauturu Awaroa region, for example. So we have a scenario there where the agency with the national responsibility is saying that that is not a priority, even though we know from the information available to us as a region that that is where we have species which are endemic to the Waikato, i.e. found only in the Waikato, native plant species, and landscapes of national significance dominated by karst and limestone landforms, and yet they're pulling out. So, we really need to have a very an evidence-based summary of what the implications are for the Waikato region so that we can then think about what adjustments might be needed in terms of our response as a region. Because even though it's their national responsibility, we also have some responsibility. It's not just their role entirely. And if it means that particularly I'm focusing on things like a species found only in the Waikato is under threat of extinction, we're going to have to think really carefully about the way we're spending our money. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. And I support that because as a farmer, that economically we can't afford some of these things to come into agriculture areas either. So, and then the cost of that coming in and affecting our production, so I fully support. We need a inventory of how that's going to affect the Waikato region is basically what I think you're asking, Bruce. And maybe some of the shortfalls or cost of what the shortfalls are going to be that we can in the future know what it's going to cost the Waikato region and then go back to Wellington Lobby or how we were going to pay for this. So yeah, thank you for that.
I just want to repeat an earlier comment that I've made around this council is that I believe our focus on biosecurity and biodiversity is not high enough, even though it's contained within this committee. And I see we've got an activity. This is a great report, Patrick, and I welcome it strongly, but I do not believe that we are doing sufficiently with our council structure to deal with it. And that's a discussion for another day, but I just take the opportunity that we need to support Patrick and his team in a much better way. So absolutely support Bruce's comments.
Thanks, committee, for your comments on this matter. It's certainly an emerging one for us. And I'll just acknowledge that DOC isn't the only agency that we have very important partnerships with our programs across ICM. And as we've all read about the various changes and cuts through government departments that are working their way through, we'll be getting our head around what that exactly means for some of our important partnership programs, because that is the foundation for a lot of what we do is strong partnerships with our government colleagues.
Just picking up on that point, obviously MPI is golden clams and Kalupa. Well, I mean, they're facing cuts as well in biosecurity, aren't they?
Yeah, we don't have any further, I guess, insights into that at the moment, but yes, absolutely. It's one of the many areas that we work closely with them on, and especially Kalupa and golden clams are critical partnership projects.
going to be interesting though. I mean, our budget is 16 million at the moment. I can't see it doubling or anything like that to fill in what government does. We're going to have to reprioritise our own stuff as well to work out. I mean, is golden clams or is it wallabies or is it Kalipa? Where do we fit into this mix?
Well, sorry, Mr. Chairman, just to carry on from Ben, I mean, I was going to bring that later up, but when Patrick does his thing on golden clams, I did a presentation for the long-term plan to the Rotorua District Council, and that is a high priority that was a huge question on what's happening with golden clams. Also had meetings with Mangakino Pauakani committee down there. That's high on the agenda. I don't think there's enough information out there on what's actually happening. You know, I know that you sent out an email saying that I think there was the MPI have created 12 mobile wash plants for iwi. No one knows anything about that, you know, and I think, you know, with the new part of the aqua park down Taupo with the golden clams being in there, you know, could have been in there for 2 or 3 years even before the outbreak in the Waikato. I think more information is better than no information. So, you know, I think whether it's us or whether it's MPI, we advocate for MPI. There needs to be more information out there into the public and the public arena on, you know, on this golden clam and, you know, what's going to happen with it.
We all have this problem though, getting public to buy into stuff, and that's the big discussion is how do we get the community to buy into that? Like, you know, you can put on a website or whatever, but are they going to listen? You know, like I find that you can put the information out, that doesn't mean they're going to find it. Like you can lead a horse to water, doesn't mean it's going to drink. So we got to find a better way of communicating with our public, of giving that information out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always the challenge. And we do put effort in some areas. One thing I would emphasise with golden clams is the MPI-led response currently. We haven't transitioned into any long-term management arrangements. We are around the governance table for the response and really pushing to make sure that there continues to be an effective response. Communications is part of any response. Many of you will be familiar with the SIM structure. That's a critical component to make sure that actually what is being needed from the public is being communicated, is being supported.
It's just to note that at the moment there's something like 1,300 jobs gone from central government. The aim was to take 16,000 out of central government if you looked at the original. So there's more to come in terms of unfunded mandates ending up on our door that should be done by government.
Cool, thanks. Look, don't disagree with any of that. Just on the gold clams, I mean, I think there's certainly work to do on the communication. But one thing that MPI have done quite well is talk to users, and say Rowing New Zealand, the Wakeboard Association, that they're into it. They're really proactive because they don't want to see their assets that they use ruined. So I mean that is a good part of the response. They're out there talking to people face to face. Wider communication, I think, could do some improvements, but they done some stuff well. Look, while we're talking about clams, may as well carry on. I just thought I went out and had a play in the river the other day, and not this jar, but just to give you, not that you guys all need convincing that this is a bad pest, but this is about as many as you get in this area of riverbed. So this gives you an idea of just how the density of these things. So I pulled out this many clams in this amount of space of the river. So it's pretty amazing. Put my hand into a hole and kept pulling out clams, and it was about this many. Just off the state highway as you come into Karapiro and one of the boat ramps. Yeah. So it gives you an idea of like what we've got in store for us, where these things are already present and they haven't built up in numbers yet.
Patrick, is the way I'm starting to read it is some, like they're saying Taupo's had them possibly because of the size of them 2 or 3 years. Karapiro's had them for a similar period or slightly less.
Yeah.
The reality is from Lake Taupo to Port Waikato, they're along the whole stretch. Sure.
They're not in the river near Taupo, so they're in a little pond essentially down near where the prawn park used to be, or prawn park is. But they're not in. They're from Maraetai down. But this is an anomaly. They're not in the river up until or down
so
downstream.
It's beyond Taupo.
It's not in Taupo. No, so it's not in the river.
The aqua part that I found them is just a separate little where they do wakeboarding in a pond.
So somebody's
So it's
brought
right
a
next to the
contaminated
prawn park.
piece of something into that area.
So, yeah, so, and no boats going there, so it must have been transferred by human on shorts or, you know, clothing. Or something like that. So, but they're saying that it's been in there for 2 to 3 years. So even before the outbreak in the river. So there's still testing to be done, Noel, but the big thing is that because it's, you know, even like when I had the meeting with Mangakina Pauakani, I said, be proactive as a TA and put a wash. They didn't have a wash plant and they have wakeboarding competitions in there and stuff like that. And the same with Rotorua. You look at how many lakes they've got, even though that's kind of more in the Bay of Plenty, we're kind of just on the Reparoa side, but their main concern is also the outbreak. I just think it's that communication between MPI and the TAs that needs to be more thorough. You know, they obviously doing stuff, as I said, 12 mobile wash plants going out there to the iwi and stuff like that. But yeah, there needs to be a lot more media on this, I feel. You know, and the other big thing that I was going to bring up is, you know, that documentary on TV about that weed invasion in the sea. You know, that's something else that, you know, we've got a lot of coastline and, you know, I think that's something else that we need to be proactive and have our eyes on just to, you know, see what's rather than waiting for our partners, even if it's in their realm, like the golden clams with MPI.
So I mean, I'd really like to bring back some detailed papers on both clams and the caliper and the capicula to the next meeting. I think that it'd be really timely. And I'll see if MPI can. It'd be good if MPI could come along as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So congratulations on getting us some clams. No, seriously, it's the chairwoman was very impressed when the mussel farmers brought us some shells to show you the size. It makes it much more real. How much impact is that going to have on hydro generation, and what are the generators putting towards dealing with this?
Yeah, they're certainly helping where they can, and they're really looking to the long term and seeing how they can play their part. They don't want to spread it around the rest of the country like we don't. And I guess the impacts are still pretty minimal because they haven't built up in the numbers yet. But looking around the rest of the world where these things have, they build it, just a shell load. I mean, you just end up with huge shell banks. They block filters. They're obviously just going to create a whole lot of hassle and headaches for any water users, I think, especially extraction or hydro. It's going to be a pain. Interestingly enough, they were discovered in late January in Brisbane, in the Brisbane River as well. So, and they don't know how they got there.
Could you suggest that maybe one of the hydro generators comes along to your meeting with MPI so that they're actually part of the discussion? So
they certainly are. They're part of the team already. Yeah,
they've actually got money to spend on this.
Yep, they have. No, they're definitely part of the team.
I'm not sure whether this is a silly question or not, but the likes of those extracting water from the river and ultimately returning it to the river, is there a risk with irrigation? Although, because it's going to land, therefore, yeah, it's not a viable medium for the clams, I would have thought, to remain on land, their spat or whatever it's called. But is there a risk with the irrigators actually exacerbating this? And is there the things that we need to do as a council through rules or otherwise that need to be implemented?
So we have done that. So all people with permits or water takes have been spoken to, and we've made sure that any that potentially would be taking the water to another catchment have not done, they don't do that. So NZTA is on board. Yeah, so like all of the users are really on board. Yeah, and they've all been spoken to.
Like that would be the biggest one would be like Glenbrook taking water out of the Waikato River and then taking up to Waitakere, or not Waitemata, or is it harbour? Because they're pumping. That's where they pump the sand up to the steel mill. Yeah, Glenbrook. Yeah, so that would be the biggest user, I'd imagine, changing catchments.
And
Warren.
water.
Yeah, thank you. If I can jump onto the Calliope, unless you're going to touch on it later. I know it was right. No, jump in now, Patrick. I don't want to wreck your presentation. Just quick question around that. You've got staff talking to MPI and Mana Whenua regarding Ahu Mercury Islands. Where are we with that? Because to me, that's a really critical area for us here in the Waikato. If we can eradicate it out of the Mercs, it is only patchy there. And the whole sit, wait and monitor MPI mentality really frustrates the shit out of me, to put it mildly.
Yeah, where are we up to? Probably need to come back really to the committee on that one. But it's not as advanced in the long-term planning as particularly the CLAM response. There was an injection of funding from MPI of $5 million, but the majority of that's up in Northland.
Yeah.
And they're doing some trials on dredging, which it's quite effective, but it takes everything, you're dredging everything, not just the Kalepa.
Yep.
And it's really expensive and slow.
Yeah. Look, I know Andrew Johnson really well, and they can clear half a hectare a day. So in some of those heavily infested areas. So I think it's really critical that I know we're stretched and that sort of thing, but that we push really hard in this space, because if we can eradicate it, Great Barrier is going to have to just manage it. It's got too big over too long a period. But if we can look at, if the solutions are there and it's workable, it's something I think we really need to
we're really in
push hard with those partners.
Trying to develop tools. That there is not many tools, and I really don't think eradication is on the table anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, I think again we'll bring back some more robust information to the committee.
Yeah, I would beg to differ on that, but yeah, it just it's something that's critical, because it's the Karakia of the ocean, and it's just going everywhere. It's going to have huge economic effects on this area as well. But it's just not, it's just not a nuisance pest. Thank you.
Warren, it should have been something you asked about fish flow about yesterday. He may have had an idea on that as well. Yes, exactly. Might pay to send him an email, Bruce.
Yeah. Now, again, I don't want to interrupt the flow. So, how much more are you going to tell us, Patrick? Before
I've just got a couple of other points on the status report, but happy to just go with the flow.
Okay. Well, look, I just wanted to congratulate you on particularly one element of the report, and that was the map that you presented, which showed the overlay between SNAs and priority sites. And it's a classic example of the sort of prioritization process that we need to be going through, I would say even more so now because of the shortfalls in funding from DOC. So it's page 34, I think. Yeah, page 34. You see, the thing about, and I also wanted to use it, I'm sorry, to make the point about why SNA information is so critical to the management of our region. And, all this talk that was in the Stratton poll meeting the other day about should we be doing this or shouldn't we be doing it? Actually, we need to keep doing this sort of stuff because it is a major component of state of the environment reporting, which enables us to prioritize what we're doing in our region. And what you're looking for in a map like this is the sweet spot between, where is the focus for this council, which is essentially on the private lands, not on the conservation, public lands, but where are the places where there are overlaps and connections where you get the best bang for your buck? And this map is an amazing tool to help in that process. And I wanted to also connect it to the comment that Warren just made. The same thing is required in the coastal marine zone as well. And the Mercury Islands and places like that are like nationally significant sites that we need to be prioritising for things like biosecurity control. And again, I just wanted to say that, you know, we can see from your map that you guys are heading in the right direction. We're just interested in how, what the impacts will be of the changes in government funding, which might need for us to rethink some of the prioritisation process. So thank you for your report.
Cool. That was the only other thing I was going to say. So thanks, Bruce. Actually, one other thing, more props. Just want to do a shout out to the Kāori protection team who got an award on Monday night at the New Zealand Biosecurity Awards. Yeah, really cool actually. Really innovative team. You guys have seen the tree, and some of you have seen the virtual reality experience, and they just do a whole lot of other amazing stuff. Really cool team, and it's really cool to be acknowledged. Yeah, really awesome. I don't think so. Actually, it looks like Remu.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say, Patrick, that you pass on our congratulations and job well done to that team.
Thanks very much.
Bruce has alluded to this map and Patrick's raised it. I just want to raise an issue here and some of the feedback, a recent Waikato Times article about the proposed, what is it called? The permitted activity replacement targeted rate. A number of people have contacted me from the area of the Coromandel there, which is all under green, and one or two other areas, but it just shows how much of the significant natural area the Coromandel is, and they're concerned about that rate being introduced on land that is basically native bush. So it'll be an issue that comes up during the long-term plan, but there's a map in front of you to just right now to show what an unintended consequence might be of that that targeted rate. But I'm not here to advocate that right now, but
just be careful about what the map's showing. The green zone isn't just private land. Most of the green zone is actually public land.
Yes, appreciate
vast amounts of it.
Yes, but there is quite a bit of private land. Yeah, appreciate that too. Thank you.
Oh, just checking. So as far as your map goes, your highest priority would be where it's both an SNA and a PBS?
No, not necessarily. It's just showing the overlap. So our priority biodiversity sites are the kind of the top sites where you'd want to really go for broke with the landowners to try and restore the sites. So it's trying to get a representative range of all the ecosystems we have in the Waikato that are restored.
Could you give us another map with your top priority sites in it?
They are the top priority sites.
Right, but what you're saying is that if it's blue, it's not necessarily higher than if it's red or green.
It's just showing where there's overlap with the district plans, SNAs.
Right. So all of the Coromandel is now considered a priority, so top priority site. I mean, if we're looking to reallocate funding to cap.
So the green is if it's an SNA. That where it's red or blue, that's where, if you were gonna go for something, got to go for those sites because they're either the rarest ecosystems, the most vulnerable, the least left in New Zealand or the Waikato.
Okay, so
the least represented.
The red and the blue are the ones that are our priority targets at the moment.
For my team's program that proactively go out to knock on doors of landowners.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, there's a whole lot along the top of the Bombays and then coming around to Perth.
It's just the foreshore in the Firth. That's behind. That's what's in front of the stock bank.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to give us a rating priority of where our money should be reallocated to or from, though. That's all.
I think that won't happen for another 6 months, though,
but,
Ben.
But that's kind of not the question. The question was, where's the top maybe bits of biodiversity on private land that if we're going to do anything, we'd run after and support the landowners there.
But in Patrick's report, he refers to a model called zonation, which does provide that sort of information. So all he's done is he's answered a question that somebody posed. And so yes, Ben, yes, those questions can be answered. And the most important thing about it is the co-location of the red, the blue and the green. Where are the places where they connect and they meet, and where can you build the corridor from the mountaintop to the sea? But, you know, we focus on the bit that we're meant to be focusing on, and the other lot focus on their bit. I mean, the other lot, the government agency responsible.
Yeah, and where you run into issues is where we're trying to support a landowner restoring a bit of biodiversity, and the neighbour conservation often has no money to do their pest control, and you end up with a tidal wave of pests flowing over the boundary to try and manage. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Patrick, just on the beginning, your report on the wallabies. Are we using 1080 to eradicate them, or are they just a byproduct of the 1080 program?
For the operations outlined there, they're the focus.
Sorry?
They're the focus.
They're the focus now, so
Yep.
you're using 1080.
For some of, for the operations in the report. Yeah.
Just on wallabies, Patrick, was there any more to that Kennedy Bay sighting?
We haven't managed to locate it.
Doesn't sound like it.
And sorry, just on that, what about Reparoa? Reports of wallabies out there, has that been followed up, or?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
And then also the one that they were looking for, I know the Pest Board were looking for one on top of Mount Tahara, or not on top of, sorry, on the mountain side, mountain road side.
Okay,
I think Jason Day was doing that.
Oh yeah, I'll have
looking
to,
one.
I can.
I think it was the one they never caught in the OPEPI when they had a few in the OPEPI truck.
Oh, we've shot a few in there. So
Yep.
yeah, I can get back to you on that.
Yep.
Yeah, Patrick, just an excellent report that's informative and to the point. So yeah, well worth waiting for. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to what Mike said earlier from the whole committee, that a thank you to all the staff and the involvement and all the time they put into making that the carry dieback such a big a well done project, and hopefully we're going to win another award at the in August. So thanks very much, and thank everybody for their involvement. And
thank you.
Especially most probably past employees that have moved on that have actually put a lot of effort into it before the rewards start getting given.
Yes, that's right. I actually had coffee with Kim Parker yesterday, who was the driver behind a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty happy.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you. Is that your report completed?
That's Yep.
So can I? Yep. No, and all in favour? Against? Carried. All right. Biosecurity. Doing that?
Right, so we'll continue. So as we usually split our agendas into activities, and now we've got a couple of bespoke reports. Well, first one is on biocontrol. I know there's a lot of interest in the community about what we do, and possibly it's an opportunity to really raise the awareness of what is a really effective approach for managing some of our pests. And I'm sure Patrick will give us some health and safety background on the stuff that he's got ready.
I'm just watching the bugs crawling out of this container. Actually, they're not very well contained. Hey, thanks. Look, it's really great that you wanted a bit more info on the biocontrol program. I love the biocontrol program. It's awesome. So it's basically it's the use of pests, natural enemies, to try and suppress them to the point where they're not a pain anymore. Paper outlines the what and the how and the why. It's such a good program because we leverage a whole lot of co-investment. So, all the other regional councils contributing, Landcare Research is contributing, Department of Conservation contributes, and out of that you get a pool of decent money that you can do decent stuff with. I think the slides I've got are just four of the really widespread pests that essentially they're too widespread and too difficult to really either eradicate or contain anymore. And we talked at length when we did our biosecurity strategy and the regional pest management plan about how do you deal with that and how do you support landowners. And the cool thing is Biocontrol is one of the tools that we have. There's a really rigorous process with the EPA to ensure that we don't end up with unintended consequences as much as you can, like in previous biocontrol attempts, like bringing in ferrets and stoats to control rabbits. Everyone knows what happens. They went after the birds that can't fly. So, you know, and it's not only about pest plants, we also have good biocontrol programs for wasps as well, so to try and keep a handle on those. So there's, if you flick through the slides, there's 4 species. So Tradescantia I'll talk about in a second, because I've got two of the biocontrols. Moth plant, that's a moth plant beetle on the right. It's a cool little purple thing. That was released in 2019, and it's still kind of moving and establishing. And I think that it's going to be really important that we keep looking for other things for moth plant, because that moth plant is really good at getting around the country. Next slide.
Patrick, Chair, can I just jump in, Patrick? I thought we looked at some sort of fruit fly for the moth plant.
So that's the latest one. So the latest one is held up because they changed the name of the species we were looking at, and the technicality is all fruit flies of the new name are banned from New Zealand. So we have now a technical issue that we can't import this fruit fly into New Zealand to release it. So we're working through, the collective is working through that with the EPA and see what we can do. But that was the next one we were going to look to release. So this is Californian thistles. There's actually been 6 biocontrol agents released for them. I won't go into the detail of it, but that's a long-standing big program and has really reduced how effective Californian thistles are.
So are they doing nodders as well, or is just
Californians?
Right.
But I have to go back and see what other thistles biocontrols are on the cards.
This would be one of the worst seasons I've ever experienced in 45 years as a farmer with Kellys. I thought I had them under control, and this year they have just come from nowhere. It's
been a good growing season for lots of things. And the last one there is woolly nightshade. So in 2010, the lace bug was released, and I guess the good thing I can say is that all of those biocontrols, you release them and they've actually dispersed and are doing their thing. And yeah, it's really cool. So the investment is relatively, even though about $500,000 a year collectively goes into these programs, it's a relatively modest investment when you look at the benefits. And we've got a couple of examples in the report for ragwort and mistflower. And for mistflower, that's a real success story, because it's a northern, so Coromandel North, terrible pest that you had no tools to manage, and it just smothers the understory. And now people don't even need to worry about any control for it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and so I brought along 2 things. These are the Tradescantia. This one's the predicted billion in 2015. That actually happened. Right. There's still pockets.
Yeah, they did. Oh.
Mike's, yeah,
Sorry, yeah, the ragwort now stands out
yeah.
because it's, that yellow flower was 20, 30 years ago, it just was everywhere.
Agree. I support you 100% with this. And I think it's something we need to get behind a bit more, and especially in our rural areas that they wing thistle and knotters, and they're all out there just blowing seeds over the fence. And the good old rule for agriculture is 1 year seeding is 50 years of headaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's other biocontrols for Tutson. So a lot of people on the western side of the Waikato or even on the Coromandel will have any riparian areas you have. Tutson just can smother it, and they're now moving up. They were released in the south, and they're now moving through the region. So I agree, it's a really cool program.
Yeah, and spraying and other things to contain them when you can just release a little insect that does it all, and there's no contamination going into drains and into waterways and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Patrick, it seems item number 29 that your council budget's only 20,000 a year for doing this stuff. Are you looking to increase this? Is this if it's made such a great difference with mistflower or mistwort and ragwort, are you making a bid for increased funding in this area?
So that's what we contribute. So we contribute $20,000 a year for the WASP Biocontrol program and $60,000 for the pest plant or weed biocontrol program. So it's $80,000 a year. We also, have quite a lot of staff time running around moving the biocontrols around or releasing them. I don't think so. I think if there was going to be a requested increase, it would be a request from the collective to say, actually, we need a bit more money. I haven't heard that signalled at this point. So in terms of the research and the program for that, I think it's okay.
So what's our capability of getting bigger without spending any more money? They're doing more, I should say.
I mean, I can certainly put a question to the collective to see, what the longer term view on this is and where the program's going. I think I'd certainly be interested in bringing an update back to the council.
Yeah, because I'd like to know what our capacity is to do more and what the spend would be. Yeah.
Two issues. I know on the Waipa, convolvulus, it's now going up the streams from the river. It's the only thing to kill it is the escort, but are we looking at biological control agents there? Or is it not that bad yet? Just doesn't seem to get controlled.
I can remember a paper to the Ecological Society that convolvulus is the widest dispersed weed in the world in 96% of cities. So, and I think we might run into problems with the native ones, but I don't think there's any program for convolvulus.
Okay. It's just smothering the plants and everything else. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just on your comment on more so, I think that's why it's important that this committee, through Greg's team, we come back in 6 months' time and really see what the effect of central government's, starving is, and then make priorities on where we need to go and through Patrick and that, what we need to do. I think that's real important that we do that this year. We have a separate workshop where we actually say, right, this is what the government agencies are cut back on. This is the effect of these different programs that are PPs, and then say, right, what is now, evolving into a major thing that we need to take control of that, and whether because through the long-term plan, this was the most talked about and advocated biosecurity and biodiversity was in there. So I think we should carry that on, being proactive and coming to that program, because we can talk about, do we need to spend more money on this or this program, we're not going to know that until we know what's been cut.
Just imagine if your community decided to pay 15 something per property, it's going to double the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
Well, that's the point I wanted to pick up, because that's the whole point of what we're doing in the LTP.
Hey.
Because if we really want to expand some of the stuff, we need additional funding. I also wanted to make the connection though between the national collective, the National Biocontrol Collective, and the research agencies that are now also going to be under serious pressure for funding. So these biocontrol agents don't come from nowhere, and they come from often long periods of research, particularly from people, Manaaki Whenua Landcare Research and NIWA and other places that actually do the developmental work that allows us to be in a position where Patrick can pick it up operationally and deal to it. And so the whole business of how you search for new biocontrol agents, how you develop the biocontrol agent is now seriously under threat because the science funding is also going to be significantly reduced. And so again, it's a question of, these collectives are so important, the National Biocontrol Collective, because it's not just our council, it's other councils as well. And it's that whole ecosystem of what's needed to do to keep ahead of the game. So again, just endorsing what Michaela is saying about how we need to have a real clear idea about where all this is heading and what we can do to pull the strings or the levers, or even go down to Wellington and thump on a table or two. I mean, we've got to really think this through.
Yeah. I totally support that. And as Pamela said the other day that she's got a meeting, our chair has got a meeting with Andrew Holgate in the end of the month or in June. So I think, Patrick, you need to present something to her of what our concerns are of where this could be heading with this at the moment. So I think that's most probably the best place to take that is most probably have a discussion with Pamela, and since she's spending time with Andrew, I think she's got half an hour with him to even if it's just 5 minutes of a presentation that you can give her to present on that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Last question. One last question from me, Patrick, and that's alligator weed. And I note your comments in paragraph 41 of the agenda without spelling them out. The exceedance issue. Have we lost the battle with alligator weed?
That's a really good question. We're actually reviewing the program at the moment and having a really hard look at it, the stock take, doing a stock take, what's working, what's not. We've also dragged in Auckland, Bay of Plenty, Horizons, Taranaki and Hawke's Bay, who have small infestations of alligator weed, to see if we can get a bit smarter about how we're working on it. I don't think we've lost the battle, but we need to really think strategically about where we focus our resources to ensure that we can contain it to its current level, at least in the short term. It's real, yeah.
Because it seems that it's containment as opposed to eradication. The eradication just doesn't seem to be. Have you actually eradicated it anywhere?
We've eradicated it from quite a few small sites.
Awesome.
But the infestation in the Waikato River is pretty scary. So I think that the key for us is to try not to initially contain it and then see if we can start reducing it in extent.
Okay, thank you.
Not for the biocontrol stuff, thanks.
Getting as bad as everyone else. Against? Carried. Thank you. Natural Heritage Fund.
All right, so one last paper in this particular part of our business around our Natural Heritage Fund, which forms part of our larger Natural Heritage project, our partnership project. And I just acknowledge that there are some parallel discussions happening in terms of LTP proposal, which you mentioned, Mr. Chair, around certainly asking the question of the community around status quo versus an increase to take account of inflation versus going further to respond to the kind of demand that we're seeing. And also the work that we're having on the that we're doing on the policy that underpins this particular program, to I guess reset in terms of where we focus our efforts and how we support the community in the space. So, but this particular paper is focused on the Natural Heritage Fund, which is our largest one, and certainly some constraints that we have given existing commitments to that. And so a paper here, not for decision of the committee, but more for visibility, so you're aware of where we're heading with this. And we can talk in general terms about some of the smaller funds as well in terms of the plan for this year. Thanks, Patrick.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, look, if it's okay, I'd just like to take it as read and just note that we foreshadowed this through long-term plan meetings and also through the policy discussion and strategy and policy meeting a few weeks ago, that, at the moment, we can't make a decision as to whether we'd seek or receive applications for Natural Heritage Fund, and that is really pending on the decisions through the long-term plan. So we've signalled that to some of the bigger groups that are looking for funding, like MEIT. Yeah, so yeah, take it as read from that point. Thanks.
So while I appreciate the programs often associated with this area of work are multi-year, it seems that previous commitments are really restricting the ability to give meaning to this fund on an ongoing basis. It seems that it appears from what's in front of us on page 40 that there's chunks, and you basically used up the 3 years of this term and beyond this term of council. So it really means that unless we get the increases through the long-term plan to deal with what we perceive as a needed situation, yeah, I can understand why you're holding off. So I'm just concerned that the prior allocations, but recognising the need to invest in programs that will achieve rather than single year and contestable. So maybe we need to think smarter how we do this. I don't know.
Absolutely, and you'll recall in the strategy and policy discussion, it was agreed that we would not allocate funding like that from this point on. So that policy has been changed, and it will be only allocating that annual allocation to groups. There's still multi-year funding, but only out of the single year, because this issue is compounded and left us in this position.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. That was my frustration too. That forward borrowing has dropped us in this situation. So, but I think as Robbie and both Bruce touched on, this is one of those things that we just need to make sure that the public is aware that if we could bump it up to that $15.85, etc., that we can do so much more. So, yeah, thank you, and happy to move the report.
I'll second it. In favour? Against? Thank you.
Thank
you,
very much.
Patrick.
Thanks.
We've got a good group of reports there. Thanks very much for your efforts and your time into that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So we'll now move on to our flood protection and land drainage work program, and we've got Dave and Adam in the room to speak to different elements, which I guess is largely focused on our lower Waikato, Waiho and Piako zones, but noting that we do have some small programs in Coromandel and Lake Taupo as well. Also joined online by several of our zone managers who will be able to support the committee in terms of any of the more specific inquiries or interest into zone projects. As with Biosecurity and Biodiversity, a bit of a general paper before we dive down into a couple of specific papers in the same area. Thanks, Tim. I'll pass over to, looks like Adam's ready to kick things off.
Sure, the draw short. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yeah, so the report does follow a very similar format to what we report back through to the Waikato and the Hauraki scheme subcommittees. I do have a couple of apologies today, so I just want to acknowledge the contributions from Jodie, the zone manager for Hauraki, Sarah Leland, the zone manager for Lower Waikato, and Ruben Mills, land drainage manager. He's away on leave this week. So I'll do my best to cover his activities, Mr. Chairman, and a couple of, I guess, some highlights from the Lower Waikato, and I'll hand over to her shortly. I guess, yeah, the report does cover the update regarding our capital and our operational work programs across the Lower Waikato and Hauraki scheme areas. Overall, things are tracking really well. I have to say that the fairer weather that we've had this summer has certainly helped, and has certainly enabled us to catch up on our work programs that were delayed last year due to ongoing weather events. And just want to acknowledge the work of the team in that space to keep on top of things. I think we have a couple of pictures just to show just some of the examples of the work we've been doing. So a lot of the focus from Cyclone Gabrielle from last year, this is in the Waihau catchment, particularly just some of the debris, just some of the trees that have come down from the storms, and the team's been busy out there just trying to clear them away. We've been granted some obviously some additional money using the disaster reserve, and also from some of the work from the government just to help catch up, because this area was hit quite hard, and we're actually still getting some reports of damage being reported. But work is going pretty well, and we're able to ensure that we can meet that level of service around some of those affected river and catchments. I think the next picture. So from a capital works point of view, we've been continuing on with our capital renewals and pump overhauls, which are going pretty well. This is at the Drents pump station, and you can just see the crane, the vertical lift, bringing the pump out, and getting taken off for renewal, and then putting, I guess, a few days later, getting put back in. So as you can see, the blue skies in the background just enabled the team just to focus on more of that BAU, trying to catch up, keep our assets in good working order, and taking, I guess, just trying to accelerate some of the program as well, just to make sure that we do meet our level of service and our assets remain in really good condition. And also just want to acknowledge the work from Dave's team as well around some of the asset condition inspections and the structural audits, which is really leading to some really good indications and proactiveness around keeping our assets in good order. So thank you. I think the next slide. So again, just some of the more river work that we've been doing. This is on the Puriri River in Neesville between Paidara and Thames. A lot of sediment, very steep. I think, Mr. Chairman, you went up this way as well, around Kaumata and Knoll. Have a look shortly after Gabrielle, and just saw some of the sediment and the boulders that had come down. And I think the river level was higher than the road in some places, particularly up the Kaumata. So the Puriri River has certainly didn't escape either. And you can see some of the size of the trees that the team has to, I guess, cut up and take away. And if you're leaving those trees there longer term, you can just imagine the scouring that would occur and the blockage. And so we really do need to make sure that we open up those river to get ready for the next rain event.
I just want to acknowledge, Adam, for a second, the staff, that the time they put in a very short amount of time to get that government funding. It was days they had to report and get back, and they still accomplished getting some big numbers of funding out of central government. So I just want to acknowledge that, they've been putting in some hard hours. Well, that's nearly 6 months ago now, but thank them very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Just to follow on that, because that was going to be one of my questions after the report had been given by Adam. How much did we apply for, and how much did we get out of that disaster fund?
I don't have those figures on with me at the moment, but I can report back through.
Yeah, it would be interesting just to see out of the different programs that you applied for and how much you got.
Yeah.
Because again, these are the important things, I think, even in the future.
You're looking for a total, or
through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly in the Waihau Piako, we had in the order of $900,000 come through from the government to support our management recovery. We had some earlier funding come through from that same fund to support Graham's Creek, the Coromandel, and some additional river management work. And I've got Emily online and Chloe as well, and they will have the specific numbers to hand, I'm sure.
I think, sorry, just to follow on to that, Greg and Mr. Chairman, if we could, I think it's real important that these partnerships that we add, all the extra funding, especially because it tends to be through ICM, that they're actually reported in these reports of how much we've got or what we've applied for. because I think that's going to be important again when we do our strategy after, 6 months on where we're going on certain places that we're going to have to apply to, because we can't do it all ourselves. We can't do it on our ratepayers, if DOC and MPI are all cutting back and stuff like that. We're going to have to know these and what works well with these government agencies that we can get funding, because it will be so important.
Sorry, it is on page 165. There is a report on this. It doesn't tell us how much we applied for, but it certainly itemised 3.32 million that we got.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Councillor. I was just going to point that out. So, and this is, I guess, a challenge. We have different reports covering different activities, a little bit of overlap between what we do, but yep, certainly a summary provided there. We were quite fortunate in terms of the amount. I don't have the level top of my mind, I must admit, in terms of what we didn't get, but certainly relative to other councils, we were quite successful.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So obviously we have a close relationship, obviously with Julie and the Shovel Ready program. And I think, did I see Julie have her hand up? So she might have some bit of intel to share. Julie.
I was just going, I've popped it in the chat. I was just going to note, thanks Adam and good morning everyone, that for that cyclone recovery funding, we actually got most of what we applied for. So there was only one piece of work on the Coromandel, and it was kind of survey related work that we didn't get grant funding for. So in total we got just over $3 million for 4 projects.
Thanks, Julie. I think the big confusing thing for me is under the different headings that we've got disaster relief, we've got flood and resistance, and I thought they're all different funds that you could apply for. Obviously, it's just the one fund, but with the 3 different names.
So just to clarify, we have our own regional disaster and zone disaster recovery funds, which at our last meeting, the committee agreed to release those reserves into our work programs. So that's something that we do internally. We have the North Island weather events, which have got the acronym now, so the NIWI funding. There have been 2 rounds that have come about from that last year, which as Julie referenced, we've applied for both and been quite successful. And then the third element is the Before the Deluge work that is currently underway at the moment. And so that's more supporting the long-term renewal of our assets. So yeah, there's hopefully that provides some clarification for the committee.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, if we could have in that workshop just those different entities as well, it's quite good to understand that, because I didn't know any of that, what you've just said. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just also want to acknowledge the relationship we have obviously with the Coromandel Zone as well around some of the flood recovery work, speaking with Emily and Chloe. So just want to acknowledge their contributions to this report as well. So that's just, I think this might be the last slide for Waihaupia. This is just some of the tree removal work and reshaping we've done on the banks of the Hikataya River, which was another one of the catchments quite hard hit last year. Okay, I think next slide. Oh, and just a side of some of the stabilisation.
Question is to see.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just before you jump down to Waihaupia, just going through that list, I see there was some pump station and electrical control, but just the comment around the telemetry not being supported anymore, just a little bit of an expansion on that. Have we changed systems or what we've got's redundant? Or
You got a paragraph number there?
It's on page 49. It's in the table.
Yes, she on that. I think Lisa might be online to respond to that. Warren, are you there, Lisa?
And look, happy to hear back.
Otherwise, I can follow that up for you.
I just wonder if we've got a more in-depth issue with telemetry and that sort of thing, or whether we're changing systems or just what raised that, because it says that five of those pump stations are no longer supported. So that was just a query around that.
Yes, sorry, Adam, I am here. Hello,
Thanks,
Lisa
Lisa.
here. Yes, so the telemetry, we do have an issue that the old telemetry system that was controlled through the radio system, that system is now no longer available. So we are in that process of going, how do we upgrade the system so that those pumps can be activated externally, not having to be on the site. And as we have been doing that investigation, we have found we can't just simply install the new telemetry system on some of those pump stations because of the quality of and how the control system is currently set up in them. So yes, we certainly have work in the next 2-3 years to update those telemetry systems across the hierarchy.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, because it has been raised in various other council meetings that councillors are keen for new technology and stuff to future-proof us. So yeah,
Yes.
just obviously that'll be a piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian?
I was just saying, seeing we're talking flood protection, are you anticipating floods this Friday, Saturday in the Coromandel? It looks like we're going to get some weather, but I don't know what your update is.
Yes, you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've just got to see the warning's been upgraded. Sorry, it's been upgraded to a warning this morning. Coromandel's got, I think, expecting 80 to 120 and east of Rotorua. So, in fact, some areas do need rain. We just don't want it all at once. But I'm not expecting any major issues with the totals I've seen. But we obviously are monitoring and we're activating the team. I think there's a meeting tomorrow just to plan for the weekend in case something does happen. So, yeah, but we're.
So, and through Stu, we'll actually be losing a couple of our staff from this meeting shortly to catch up on the latest updates from the Met Service. That's a regular process that we have in place where we have these alerts. And it's about not only bringing together our internal teams, but also our external partners as well, who need to be, I guess, on the same page in terms of what to expect and where to get the latest information from.
Thank you. Emily, are you online? Something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can just add, kia ora koutou, committee, just to add that part of the concern for Coromandel is the big tides we've been having, and so storm surge impact on the already vulnerable Thames coast. And Civil Defence have been in touch with the Coromandel Zone Manager as some people have just recently been allowed to go back into properties that they had been removed from. So there's just a bit of nervousness around the Thames coast in particular. But once we have an understanding of the latest and greatest after the 11 o'clock call today, we'll be able to update. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I was speaking with Kenny last night and he brought up exactly the same issue.
Kenny and I are like
high.
one.
Thank you, Emily.
And I just said they've issued a thunderstorm watch. Anyway, we we'll just keep moving through. So this slide is just showing some of the bank erosion that we've had on some of the outer bends of the streams, and just some of the reshaping work that we use just to ensure that the river operates the way it should do. So yeah, obviously you can see there's been quite a lot of damage that the teams had to go through and repair. I think I might hand over to Sarah, our zone manager for Lower Waikato, just to run through a couple of pics.
Thank you, Adam, and good morning, councillors. So the slide that we've got there is our Churchill East pump station, and you can see the two Archimedes screw pumps from Fish Flow Innovations now in place, and we're actually planning, all going well, to run those tomorrow. So we will actually welcome the rain tomorrow to enable those to be commissioned and run. And then through the month of April, we'll keep the temporary pumping in place just whilst we're commissioning those pumps and ensuring that they run on their automated programs. So really great to be at this stage of the project and being close to moving on to these fish-friendly pumps in this catchment here.
So when's the official opening day or the blessing of them?
I think we would be looking at later in April for that, Robbie. We didn't actually go with a blessing at the start of the project. We had reached out locally, but hadn't had a response in relation to that, but we can certainly look to organise some sort of opening for that and look to do that once we have confirmed that the pumps are running and doing their thing.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, the next slide that we've got here is our vessel, so Te Eroa, which is the name which has been given, which is the long flow. And you can see on the left there a picture of the cabin area, which is aluminium wheelhouse, which will sit on top of the steel vessel, which is on the right there. So the vessel has actually moved out of the storage shed now because it's too large to stay in there to have what we call as the spuds fitted, which will anchor that into position. So all the hull welding is now complete. It's outside the shed and they're working on the spuds, and then shortly the wheelhouse on the left will be fitted as well. It's currently tracking about 3 or 4 weeks behind the initial shipyard's schedule, and I think it was just a greater amount of welding, which there was a huge amount of welding actually needed there on the hull, and that just took them a little bit longer than they had anticipated. But all is going well overall in terms of scope and time, and we expect to be doing the sea trials around about August, so things are progressing well. And associated with the vessel is the mooring and dry docking facility. And so that activity kicked off a couple of weeks ago as well. And what you can see there is the work that they're doing with, you can see some of the piles there, which obviously will hold the vessel. That's a purpose embayment which already existed, but we're just enabling greater capacity there. And supporting the banks there as well, because we're having to do a bit of regrading, and there's also a jetty, which you can see there on the left, that is being built. So that's progressing really well as well.
Sarah Warama here. Timeframes for the moorings and that, because I know it's come up in risk and assurance. You're confident that we'll get that through before they'll have to stop for winter?
Yes, it's tracking really well. So yep, we're confident that we'll get what we need there completed. So I think they've actually got all of the piles in place now.
Thank you.
And is the design completed to roll 30-ton or 20-ton machinery off the barge to load it on? Where is that going to take place? Is that going to take place here, or is that somewhere else?
That would take place, Robbie, at this facility, but we are also looking at, are there other locations along the river that we can use for loading or unloading, because obviously we're going to be working along a long stretch of the river, so we expect that there'll be other points that we need to load and offload, but we will be getting into the detail of that in the coming weeks as we move through into the operational aspects of the program.
Yeah, I imagine there's a heap of health and safety stuff to work through with that as well, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, yep. So there's lots of procedures and health and safety considerations to work through.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just on that, there'd be places along the river too that might, in collaboration with other entities, that they would be able to use to get this on and off. Like, I'm talking about Contact or Mercury or stuff like that. That's got entities that lift the gear on and off and around. So, to have more than one option, because you'd need more than one option than one place.
Most probably with that though, we need a grounding facility to walk a 30-ton digger on the barge. So it's not a simple just design thing.
Yeah. Yes. So in terms of the actual mooring and dry dockings, we've actually been approached by others to use our dry docking and mooring facility once it's complete, because it is larger than what else is existing on the river. But we do have council land on the margins of the Waikato River and some sites that we've already identified that look suitable for being able to create an area to, walk that digger on and off and take materials on and off as well. So we're fortunate with that.
Yeah, it's vital, because that's going to be a huge cost reduction in the maintenance of running the whole operation. I'd imagine that they can get to a place quickly and get the job done, not spend hours motoring up and down the river. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Welcome.
I think that's the last of the picks. Is there a next slide there? No. Okay. So just to just in Ruben's absence, Mr. Chairman, if I can just mention, I'll take the land drainage report as read, but just a couple of mentions I think the committee might find of interest. So we've reported through the Waikato Scheme Committee around the proposed work to maintain the drains around Waikiri West. And so I'm happy to report that after some good negotiations and discussion with the Department of Conservation and Waikato Tainui, Ruben and Brendan in particular, have managed to get the concession approved, and also the management plan, which details out the methodology of the work, also approved. And so the work has already undertaken. The ward drain has been completed, and the Bulimi drain is currently being worked on as well. So the weather's been favourable as well, just to allow us to ensure that we're meeting our obligations in that area too. So that's good progress. I just want to acknowledge the team there.
So absolutely 100% the diggers hit the ground.
100% hit the ground.
I was expecting a photo of that first dig.
And I was hoping I was going to get one, but with Ruben not being here, I was unable to tap into his phone. But I'm happy to share those, Mr. Chairman, as soon as I get them.
You should ask Malcolm for it. No, I'm sure you would have received it rather quickly.
Yeah, look, that's been a long time coming and sorting, and it's been a situation where there's been a lot of learning, and I'm not sure that I want to share all of that. But it has been a journey that has involved going to landowners, Robbie and I, and staff at different times, and sitting down with landowners. And some people would say challenging landowners. I just say that landowners who are trying to protect their own interests. So it depends on how you look at it. But the reality is to see that or know that the dig has gone in. That's accumulation of more than 12 months work from Robbie and I and staff. So thank you for getting there. That's probably why I see, is one of the reasons why I'm here, is as a representative of the community to assist the community. And this has certainly been a tough piece of work to get to this stage. So thank you.
Just to add to Noel's, before you speak, Michael, but 100% agree with what Noel said, and I take my hat off. Noel has put his heart and soul into this in the last 12 months, and he's put a lot of effort, and I've supported him through the whole lot of it. But without Noel and Trevor and Malcolm and that having their say all the time, and I know it's been hard, but we finally got to an outcome that's really good. And I thank staff for staying in the conversation and getting the outcome that was desired, and that's all that's important. And I know it's a hard, as councillors, we've pushed back a few times, and it's been a bit edgy, but the outcome is the outcome we've got today, and it's the best outcome we could have got. So thanks very much for everyone's efforts. It's been amazing to finally get to this point. So thank you, Greg, and thanks to the whole team, Thank you.
Thank you both. And I'll just like to put on record my acknowledgement of the team as well. It's been a massive team effort to work through these various stages over the last few months. But the team have retained their focus ultimately on getting the work done on the ground. That's what it's been all about. And great to, as you say, Noel, get that shovel in the ground, get one of the drains done, and move through and do as much as we can this season. So no, it's outstanding. Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Yeah, happy to thank Adam and his team and move the report.
Thank you, Mike.
Just before we do, just Julie, that shovel-ready item with the foreshore project and the risk of it not being completed on time, how does that sit with us with the risk of losing that funding?
Kia ora, and through you, Mr. Chair, there isn't a risk of us losing the funding in likelihood, because right now we're assessing exactly what money might be left. We're going to complete all but a few kilometres of that stop bank work, and so it's likely that we will expend most of the grant funding from MB, but we're just assessing what that looks like at the moment and what might be left basically sitting back with WRC to complete.
Okay, so the time constraint isn't a constraint on that funding, being able to get to where you want to get to, obviously not fully completed.
Yeah, we're basically going to try and use all the money we can because we don't think MB will support an extension to the project. So we'll use as much of that money as we possibly can.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
Seconder? All in favour? Against? Carried.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I welcome Peter Searle to the table. So I'm not sure if the committee's met Peter before. He came to us, gosh, how long ago now, Peter? Yeah. Yeah, so Peter is our team leader for environmental compliance and planning. So basically helps us. We're a large holder of a number of consents across the activities that we undertake. And Peter's team helps us to make sure we keep on top of what we need to do in that consent space. And also in terms of involving ourselves in the variety of planning processes that we undertake as council and making sure that the ICM voice is around that organisational table. The paper today is a summary for you, which we bring to the committee after every work program, which provides an overview of the compliance outcomes that we've achieved. And so I'll pass over to Peter to provide some key points for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair, kia ora, good morning to councillors. As Greg's highlighted this, I'll just highlight some points through here and just to expedite time. As Greg's alluded to, there's just over 200 consents that the ICM holds. That can be from small basic culverts right through to the complex comprehensive consents. ICM self-audits, and then those audits at the end of the year go to RUD, and then they assess and give us a compliance rating based on the findings, and they may come back with queries or just accept the findings that we have there. What normally happens throughout the year, the work season's currently in place now. That's typically from January through to June. Then there's a reporting phase post-July. And then between July and December is the planning works, annual works for the upcoming following year. So this report does relate to the 22-23 year. So we've received a full compliance of the works that we did during that year. As we all know, there's a lot of bad weather events. So some of the resources were taken from the normal auditing processes over to storm works and emergency works over that period. So we didn't get to do as many as we would normally have liked. And that's the reasoning for that. As well as auditing, we've also working through and monitoring some of the what we call HEPs or habitat enhancement plans. There's one done at Huntly and one at Waiho with some fencing, planting, and those will continue to be monitored over time just to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing and continuing to be a success for the environment in those areas. We also, part of my team also does training. We have training modules that we've just launched this past year. Normally what we do is go around to the wider ICM teams, operational, and do training days about best practices, making sure everyone's doing everything right to ensure that we are compliant. We've now got these modules online, which helps with any new staff onboarding. It's part of the requirement to go through those modules so that we can keep that updated with the best practice available. Those modules cover regulation and compliance. They cover ecology and, of course, just best practices in terms of the actual works undertaken. As you'll see in the tab at the end of the report, we've achieved a full compliance rating, and that is a credit to the wider ICM works teams. They're the ones out there in the front doing the work in the base of the coalfield. We are just monitoring and auditing that part of it to make sure that it's correctly done, and there's a lot of experienced staff out there. So that's a credit to the wider ICM team. That's probably all I have on those touch points, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure whether this is the right report to bring it up in, but wetlands. Quite passionate about wetlands and what we do and how many are being created, you know, or resource consents, through resource consents for the environmental, how many wetlands we're doing. Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, that we can get a report on wetlands that are being either created through resource? I know, for example, when a lot of wetlands are getting destroyed through the ramping of the rivers down up on the upper Waikato, but then again, there's also like Karakia stated, creating a lot more wetlands through their resource consents for their activities and stuff like that. Is it possible to kind of, you know, because wetlands, not only for our native birds and habitats, also for purifying the water, I think, you know, wetlands is something that I'm passionate about getting just a little bit more information on what's happening in our regions. Is this the right area to bring this up in?
So through you, Mr. Chair, this will be work that ICM is undertaking in terms of creation of those, as opposed to a broader sort of regulatory picture.
Yeah.
Look, I'm happy to take an action away. I don't know, Peter, if you've got any thoughts on that one, but I'm happy to take an action away to bring some further information back to the committee on that.
I think, Michael, too, a bit of it was in, I can't remember which meeting it was, but it was last year, how many Ks of fencing we done to protect rivers and waterways and stuff. So that's the sort of information you're at. That sort of how many extra kilometres we did in fencing in the year was a huge amount. I forget how many kilometres it was.
Yeah, I had a great presentation from Grant down at my end at what's been happening in areas, but overall just around, because I think that's a great thing to actually, you know, a lot of people, what does Waikato Regional Council do? I think that's really something that environmental wise is huge, that we can pat ourselves on the back that is getting done in our region.
And through Mr. Chair, I guess there are varying ways to look at that as well. Obviously, wetlands get involved in our catchment program in terms of the work that we undertake. Peter mentioned our habitat enhancement plans, and so those are specifically tied to a couple of our consents to offset the impact of the work that's undertaken, and wetland would be in the scope of that. So not more than happy to bring some further detail back to the committee on that.
Warren.
Yeah, just from my recollection, I thought there was an issue with some of the Coromandel held consents and it didn't advance into the LTP. Is that correct, or have I gone off track? Yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. So we do have a suite of Coromandel consents that are expiring shortly. And so a plan was put forward as part of the long-term plan process in terms of additional resourcing. That hasn't proceeded in the budget that's proposed. So we are, I guess, regrouping as a team to understand where to from here, because they do remain an important tool for us in terms of the work that we do on the Coromandel. They do enable us to do some really important work, including storm response work to go beyond, I guess, what we'd normally be able to do under permitted activity provisions. What we're doing at the moment is taking a look at how we can still progress with the renewal of those consents under, I guess, what the budget, the proposed budget that we do have.
Yeah.
Could you please add to that, Emily, if you could, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to add to that, Coromandel holds currently close to 40 different consents. So we're going through a process at the moment. We've just engaged a project manager who's got an awesome connect and background within both ICM and RUD to help guide us through this. And so we're looking to rationalise those consents. So just for our comprehensive consents, which is connected to what Councillor Ma has raised, there's more than 20 consents that sit alongside that. So we're going through a rationalisation of what's in and what's out, and to look to try and refine that down to sort of 1 or 2 consents for across the zone. So then as part of that, we'll just check in on the budget, but the current plan is to take out a loan against the zone and to map out a repayment plan rather than a additional rate to pay that off. So we're looking to bring a paper to this committee later this year, later this calendar year, once we've mapped out all of that, and to give an update on the detail and the plan ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, can I just ask that that is kept within our agendas, etc. And just because I did note in this report, and I know it's referencing 22, 23, I think it is, or 23, 24 year, but it's got Coromandel down as not applicable. So yeah.
We just want an action to say that over the next several meetings, there's going to be updates.
Yeah,
Until
and then
we decide.
obviously recognising the fact that there will be a paper come to this team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Ben.
Oh, yeah, it was just following up with Emily. We've got the juvenile mangrove removal at Wharikawa Harbour. Are there other mangrove removal consents? And you know, are they in compliance and complete, or are we just getting an update on a specific one here?
Thank you for that. To bring up the M word, we hold 3 mangrove seedling consents currently, one at Tairua, one at Wharikawa o Portere, and for Whangamata o Tahu. So we're compliant with the delivery of all of those. Wharikawa and Tairua are delivered through community volunteers, and our team have an amazing relationship with them to deliver for the price of a sausage sizzle normally. And then Whangamata, where we're also compliant, we engage a contractor to carry out that work because the community don't want to deliver under the consent conditions we have. So all of those are compliant, and actually all of our Coromandel consents have been compliant for the last period.
It's really good news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Peter, I'd like to bring up one, and it's one that I get from contractors, and it's not having a go, but they just, I've heard it several times brought up that they're doing a job and all of a sudden the staff have to go away and do some staff training, and so they've got to leave a project for 2 or 3 days because staff are going and done training. Is there no alignment that when work is proceeding that these things, that sort of stuff should be done outside of the work program season or not? That's just a question I'm asking, because I get that question coming from contractors quite often, that they're doing a week project and all of a sudden our staff, Waikato regional staff, has had to go and do like a fish recovery or whatever it is at the time, and the project has to stop for a couple of days. So that's just a question for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The training we do is generally to the operational teams. It makes complete sense what you're saying in terms of timing. Unfortunately, sometimes with the weather, things have to be done at certain times, so that's a bit disruptive. But I couldn't categorically state with any authority that that's, again, my team train more the operational staff rather than the contractors themselves. If we need to, we can. So I'm not quite sure of those examples.
Well, it's just contractors say cleaning canals and stuff, and all of a sudden there has to be staff there with them or whatever the project is, and then they've had to stop for 2 or 3 days because the guys are gone and the team has gone and had to learn how to do fish recovery or had an upgrade on fish recovery or whatever the policy is at the time, and so they've had to shut down work, leave the machine there, and go and operate somewhere else for a couple of days while that, the staff is able to come back. So I get that a couple of times a year as a complaint. So I just wanted to bring that up with you while you're here. I'm not having a go at anyone. it's just a procedural thing that most probably you need to look into a bit more, that when an operation's happening, or those things don't happen, the other guy, the contractor's on contract to do the job as well. So yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
Happy, thank you. I'll take that on board and I'll happy to go and look into that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Peter. Thanks very much. And good report. Thank you. So we have a mover. I think Michael was before. Yep. A seconder. Then. And now, happy with the actions? Has everyone read the actions? No, yeah, Ben. Yeah. Is everyone happy with the actions that we put on there? Yep. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. That's one.
Alrighty, so our next paper, I'll welcome Lisa Drysdale to the table. So Lisa is our team leader, asset management. This is around our regional asset management plan. So I guess through our LTP discussions, the infrastructure strategy has been top of mind, and particularly the move that we are signalling in terms of needing to think differently about how we maintain our schemes and our infrastructure. The Regional Asset Management Plan, again, is a document that we have maintained for a number of years. It did start off being divided up into the different zone plans, But I think, gosh, it was probably 6 or 9 years ago, we brought it all together into one regional document. And it covers off a lot more detail than what you see in the infrastructure strategy. So Lisa is bringing to you today an update on that, and we'll take you through a couple of changes that we're making to, I guess, simplify the document so it focuses on what it needs to focus on, but also adjust the document so it's commensurate with our infrastructure strategy direction as well. I would note that we are seeking a decision of council today in terms of endorsement of this plan going forward, and this will be part of, I guess, a number of documents that accompany our long-term plan over the next few months. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. I guess this is generally very simple. It is just a piece of work that we have to review every 3 years. The document itself, this is the 3rd time that we have put it out in this format, and the document is something that we have to do to meet our legislative requirements as part of the LTP updates. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the key things it needs to contain are what are the levels of service that we are providing to the community, what are the roles and responsibilities that the council does, what are the management expectations, and then what are those key improvement activities that we foresee occurring over the next couple of years. So we can go to the next slide. The documentation itself, it sits there below the infrastructure strategy, as Greg said, as one of those key documents. So it's higher than a management document, but it's lower than something at a high level like a strategic document. Thank you. And it has been to New Zealand Audit already. It has been through internal reviews. It is at that point where we are we're only expecting one more update before it is ready to go out with all LTP documentation post, hopefully in June. So next slide, please. So in terms of context, again, context being that it still covers the flood protection, land drainage and river assets. We do not include in this document transportation or environmental monitoring or any of those other areas. In terms of content, we split the document in half this time. So that's why we say it is a significant change, and that was where in the report we said this is specifically what has changed in each chapter. If I pull it out, mainly because I have my working document that gets all the written notes in it. So that's the document now, and that's all the stuff that has been pulled out. So all the stuff that has been pulled out is all of the operational bits on what does our process look like to do capital projects? What does our process look like for escalation? Technical information around what are each of those pumps designed to do? So the absolute technical nuts and bolts, the stuff that we as the staff need is now in a separate document, versus the regional asset management plan is the external information for the community. I can say one of the critical changes that we did make in the document is from the learnings from Hawke's Bay is now in the final section, which is for each catch or each zone. It now states explicitly what the levels of service are for that zone and what it means in terms of water flow in the main rivers. So actually having that meters cube per second volume, as this is what the system is designed to do. And we saw that was critical, as I say, that critical learning out of the Hawke's Bay that got put in this time round. Yes, otherwise do you have any questions? Or comments or?
Ian. It's a good document. Obviously, I'm not aware of all the technicals. I just noticed page 119, there's $1.12 billion worth of assets here.
Yes.
It's something we tend to forget, and I haven't heard that figure before as a councillor, so it's why it's such a significant thing. I had a question. It's also interesting where you get to the maps and the individual projects. I had a question for the chair and also Noel. In the Karakia and Waikato subcommittees, do you think it would be useful for them to get a copy of this document so they can actually look at the individual areas that, you know, and what our, you know, because it brings them up to date with what the thinking is.
Yep.
So maybe that's an action that can go out. It may be better, well, I don't know. If it goes out as an electronic document, I don't know how many will read it. It may need to be produced just for the subcommittee people.
Presented to them on the day.
Yeah.
Agree. Anybody else?
I'll just make a follow-up comment. I think that's the awareness of this document for these subcommittees is critical because they are our on the ground folk who are involved in much more detail in our schemes. They are reaching out to their community members as well and talking about schemes every day and things like having awareness of levels of service and what we do, what the standards are is really critical, especially in times when our schemes are under pressure in terms of understanding what they do and what they don't do.
So we can have a mover, please. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Should we let the spelling mistake, isn't it? It's really strong.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So, through Mr. Chair, so we've got a couple of papers to get through. So one covering off our river and catchment planning activities and one to cover off our resilient development and emergency management activities. I wonder, Mr. Chair, if a 5-minute break for the committee or
would everyone like a 5-minute break just before we proceed or? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Cheers.
We'll
come back in 5 minutes.
We'll say